What's up, YouTube? This is Kyle with Carve Creative, and today we're going to be badgering 3 boards. Robert from Badger was kind enough to send us a GT badgering kit, so we are going to check everyone's boards, see if they're watertight, and if they're not, we're going to do what we need to do to make sure they are watertight. So let's get to it. So included in this kit we have a sniffer tool. This is going to be used to check and make sure that we are airtight in the controller and the battery box. And then we have our flowable silicone with the cap that we'll be using to apply the silicone to the ports. And then he also includes this nice little tool with 3 different bits for it. These are the 3 bits that we will need to get the board open. And he even included the one for the controller, which is the security Torx. We might not need to get into the controller, but if we do, we have an option. And you also use that to get in the battery as well. And then we also have some replacement ports, a guitar pick to remove the port, and it looks like a sticker to cover up the ports while we're testing. And then lastly, we got Q-tips, just in case we need to do any cleaning. So let's get to it. Robert did include everything you need to take the board apart with this little tool here, and all the proper bits, but I'm just gonna use my DeWalt Gyroscopic because it's a lot quicker, and we got 3 boards to do. So first I'm gonna take off the fender delete. Next, I'm going to remove all of these top foot pad screws. Flip it upside down and get rid of all of the rest of these screws in the bumpers here. And then the front bumper just slides out. Get this back bumper off. So you can see that the plastic on the bumper has kind of warped itself over the screw. So I'm gonna just take a knife and cut that out just so I can actually access the head. And this bumper just comes right off. So the last screws I'm gonna remove here are the foot pad screws. And those are the ones that secure the foot pad in place from the underside. And then when I'm doing the front one, I always just make sure to keep my hand supported when I take out the last screw so that it's not dangling. I don't want to put any pressure on that connector. So I'm going to remove the foot pad, and all you want to do is loosen up this front nut. You're going to feel a little click, and then after that you can gently pull it out. Now I'm going to remove these cable covers, and it's the same size bit. They used to be Phillips on the XRs and the Pints, but now it's the same, so it's kind of nice. Next thing we're gonna do is remove our axle bolts here. So I'm gonna use this tool that Robert included just to break them free. The last screws that we need to remove are the top ones because I'm gonna be taking this rail completely off. So we got 4 screws up top. Now the rail just comes right off, and the handle. This is our motor plug, and same deal as before. I'm just gonna twist this front nut until I feel it click, and now I'm just gonna bring this out of here. Now we're gonna start checking for leaks. So I'm gonna use the guitar pick to peel off this vent cover, and I'm gonna peel off the one in the back as well. So now I'm gonna put this sticker that was included and cover up the battery vent port. And when you do this, you want to make sure that you do a really good job and that the sticker adhesive is touching down so that you create a good seal. So when you use this tool, you want to get all the air out of it, and you want to have it as centered as possible over the vent port, and then you put pressure with your fingers to hold it in place. And as you can see, it's filling up with air right away. So we're going to figure out where it's coming from. So I'm going to take the Windex and I'm going to spray these ports down because that is where I suspect it's going to be coming from based on Robert's video. So you can see the bubbles are coming from the threads there behind that nut. So next I'm going to be removing these nuts. I talked to Robert. I asked him what was the best method, and he said for seal's sake it's best to remove these nuts. He said if you do have to send the board in for warranty, it might be harder to remove the silicone there, but we're just going to do it the best way possible. Remove these nuts one at a time, and they're just plastic, so you want to be very careful when you're putting them back on that you don't over tighten these things. You can pretty much just hand tighten them as far as they'll go, hand tight, and then when you're done you can do a quarter turn with crescent wrench. Before I put any silicone on here, I'm gonna take a Q-tip and just clean off any of the Windex. I wanna make sure that it dries properly when I put the silicone on there. And this looks all good and clean now. So you can actually see here where we're gonna be siliconing. I'm just gonna get all the way around these two connectors. That's where the leak was coming from. Want to make sure that that is airtight because a lot of water does enter this area of the board. So you want to make sure that none of that water is getting into your controller. If you watch the first Badger Wheel video where they break down the GT and test it for waterproof, Robert talks about how these two connectors are actually rated to be waterproof. The problem is they're soldered onto the board, and when they're soldered onto the board, the actual connectors aren't pushed up against the casing like they should be. So that's why we have a void there, and that's why we're leaking air. So all I'm gonna do now is take some silicone and make sure we get that sealed up real nicely. I like to use these little syringes. I buy them on Amazon, they're really cheap. And I really like these because I can control how much silicone I'm using. So I'm just gonna throw a little bit in here because we don't need much. And then this silicone is flowable silicone, and it kind of works by gravity. So it always finds its way to the lowest point. So I'm gonna use this syringe here, and I'm just going to get a nice thin bead of this silicone around the perimeter of these plugs. I just want to get all the way around this connector to make sure that I have a nice seal. That one's good. Now I'm gonna do the motor plug. So after you get around the perimeter of these plugs, you can take your seal tester, your leak tester, and put it over your vent port, and you're gonna pull the silicone into those voids. Now that I have it in there, I'm gonna let it sit, and after about 20 to 30 minutes, it should be cured and I can check it. And if for some reason it's still leaking because I pulled it in there too much, I'll just hit it one more time and we should be good to go. So I'm gonna set this thing off to the side and get going on the next one. So if you wanna badger your board, you can go to badgerwheel.com and we will link that in the description. And if you don't feel like doing this work yourself, you can always go to stokelifeservice.com and put your address in, and it'll find the shop that's closest to you.
So this is some fresh dog poop.
It doesn't have to be anything crazy. This is
Alright, so board number 2. Lots of leakage. So if you guys like this video, please take the time to like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And if you have anything that you'd like us to do in the shop, just let us know in the comments and we'll try to get to it.
How do we get the dirt out?
Oh, yeah, see that? One side, boom. This right here is why we need to badger these. I mean, you can see how much water and crap has gotten here already to this point. All that stuff has a risk of going inside the controller.
It's bad.
What is that all? Salt? It has to be salt.
Some foreign substance.
Is that like rust? Badger. Badger me, bro. Badger me.
This thing is jacked.
There you go. Alright, so we're gonna do number 3 now with our Windex. Let's see. All around that nut, you can see it.
This one seems alright though. But yeah, this one.
Yeah, the little one is okay. Now what we're gonna do is get our phone out, we're gonna set a stopwatch, and we're gonna see if this thing holds pressure for 2 minutes, is what Robert said for these connectors. Set this thing on here, make sure I have it nice and centered over that hole. And it's gonna fill up with a little bit of air because there's air inside these boxes, but it should get to a certain point and hold. And it looks like it's already doing that. Okay, so this thing has been held on here for 2 minutes now. Now when I take it off, you'll actually hear the air in there. So that's a good sign too. That tells me that everything held the way it should. And this board is ready to get put back together. Okay, so when I put these nuts on here, I'm just gonna get them hand tight. And then after I get them both hand tight, I will give them a quarter turn with my wrench. Okay. So now I'm just going to double check this after I put the nut on there. Make sure I didn't disturb any of the silicone. And it seems like it's still holding pretty well here. Let's see if we hear the air. Yep, all right, we should be good. This board is now ready to be reassembled. When I put this plug in right here, I'm actually gonna put some dielectric grease on both of these plugs. And that will reduce the chance of arcing, but it also makes these plugs easier to put on and off in the future. There's a little bit of grease in there. Plug it in, plug it in. Make sure you put your vent covers back on, because that would be a really easy spot for water to get back in there. All right, so I'm gonna put these hub bolts back in, and I'm gonna put a little bit of Loctite on them, and then I will torque them down to 18.5 foot-pounds. All right, so this is the last board here. They're all sealed up, and they should be a lot better than before. Ready for whatever Wisconsin weather is gonna throw at them. Like I said before, if you guys enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it, and hope you guys all have a good one. Thanks for watching.